Hey everyone, welcome back to In the Abyss. I am Rob Adams of the Actors Workshop, and we are going into the 1990s. As you know, look, the 70s and 80s for me were the golden era. Those were the heyday of film and music for me, especially the 70s for film and the 80s for music. And look, they were both great for both film and music, but for me, it was really the 70s for film and music for the 80s. And so as we go in the 90s, my list is going to start shrinking. You know, it's going to start getting smaller. You're not going to see these long lists that you saw in the 70s and 80s. But you will still see some movie classics, some classic records, and things that maybe you've forgotten about or once again never even heard of. And that's kind of been the fun of it is kind of showing you some movies and stuff that maybe you had never heard of, and introducing these to you. So let's get going with 1990. On the film side, we're going to start with one that everybody knows. It's Home Alone. And the reason I'm bringing this one up, even though we all know it, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, they're great. Macaulay Culkin, of course, hits a home run. And here's the thing, we talk about it all the time. Rob, why don't you teach children? And I always have the same response. Kids do it naturally. If you let kids be kids with no filter and just doing it with permission, they are naturally amazing. What screws kids up is people trying to train them. You know, let kids be kids. And Macaulay Culkin's a kid in this, and he is terrific. The way he plays off of those two and the way they deal with him. It is a classic film. It's a classic holiday film. We all know it, but I wanted to bring it up because that's a great example of a kid actor who just did what he was supposed to do, be a kid. The next one I want to talk about, and I don't talk about sequels too often, but I want to talk about Young Guns 2. Partly because, yes, it is a sequel. It's a continuation of Young Guns, but also it's told through the eyes of a guy named Brushy Bill Roberts, who on his deathbed claimed to be Billy the Kid. And there were people that knew Billy the Kid that said, yeah, he's Billy the Kid. And there was people that knew Billy the Kid said, no, he's not Billy the Kid. But he had certain injuries and wounds that matched with Billy the Kid. So there is a belief that Bill Roberts could have been Billy the Kid. And Young Guns 2 is told through the perspective of Brushy Bill Roberts. Emilio plays the old man, who and then also plays Billy the Kid in the film. So, they take the angle that Brushy Bill Roberts was Billy the Kid. So it makes it a little interesting because it is a sequel, but it's also kind of a separate story on its own. So I thought it was important to point that out for you guys to check it out. Next up is kind of one of those popular, 80s type films leaking into the 90s. C. Thomas Howell, Courtney Thorne Smith, Inside Out, and he's coming to work for his uncle's law firm and has to deal with a guy who's late on his payments, and then they become friends, and he teaches them how to play volleyball, and then they play against the best in beach volleyball, which is kind of cool because St. John Smith and Randy Stoklos, who were Olympians, play beach volleyball guys in the movie, which is kind of neat to see real guys play. They're not the greatest actors in the world, but it's fun to see the real Olympians playing in a movie. And once again, it's one of those fun type movies. You're not really watching it for the acting, but it is one of those ones that it has an 80s feel to it, leaking into 1990. Next up, another kind of fun kids one, we all know Kindergarten Cop. And once again, anytime you have kids and adults and you let kids be kids, there's some great humor, especially when you let them curse and you let them say things that normally you would never hear out of a kid's mouth. And Schwarzenegger is amazing dealing with them. It's another fun comedy that most of us know, but the natural ability of the kids and then Schwarzenegger using that, and you put it all together and it makes a fun comedy. All right, we're changing gears here a little bit. The first movie brought to life from Tom Clancy's novels about Jack Ryan is The Hunt for Red October. Of course, it stars Alec Baldwin, Sean Connery, Scott Glenn, James Earl Jones. It's a great film. The Red October is the sub, of course, that Sean Connery's character, captains. And what's cool about this is we talk about this all the time. If you are natural in your work, people are going to believe what they watch. So Sean Connery is a rogue Russian captain, but yet speaks in his accent, not Russian. But you believe it because he looks at it, they tell you it's it, and he believes it. So you don't need all of that kind of stuff. You just need Sean Connery being Sean Connery, and it sells. And then you put the supporting cast with it, and it's a really really good end of the Cold War type era film, and it's terrific. It's one that kind of gets overlooked with Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games being the next Jack Ryan films that Harrison Ford stars as Jack Ryan, and people know those a little bit more familiar. But this one where Alec Baldwin plays Jack Ryan, and then you got Sean Connery, like I said, is a really really strong film. Another one with Gene Hackman. We talk a lot about Gene Hackman. Narrow Margin with Ann Archer. He is like a assistant district attorney in LA, and he's protecting a witness, and they're basically on a train through the wilderness of Canada, dealing with all of this kind of stuff. One of the drills we do at the workshop is the whisper drill, where we whisper like this, talking to each other, etc. And there's a lot of scenes on the train where they have to do that because they don't want the people chasing them to hear them. And it's kind of fun because people will sometimes ask me, what's the purpose for this drill, or why are we doing this drill? And it's a connection drill, it's a concentration drill, it's a listening drill. And then you see it in movies with two phenomenal actors in Gene Hackman and Ann Archer. And you sit there going, it makes a lot of sense why Rob does what he does. Another really, really strong film. I'll follow that up with another actor I talk quite a bit about, is Christopher Walken in The King of New York. Lawrence Fishburne, David Caruso, who of course went on to do the CSIs, etc. It's another strong Walken film. He's a drug lord in New York, and it's just a typical dark crime thriller. Once again, kind of has an 80s feel leaking into 1990, and it's just another strong Christopher Walken film. He's doing what he does best, Christopher Walken, and that's all you can ask. Another terrific film. All right, going to like a horror suspense thriller type film. Misery, James Caan, Kathy Bates. What can you say? It's amazing. When I started buying DVDs, I remember going to Best Buy and I said, I'm going to buy X amount of dollars worth, and I just started going through the shelves and pulling movies, and this was one of the first ones I bought in that first batch way back when. I mean, that's how good of a film this is for me. It's just really, really strong. The story is great. James Caan does a phenomenal job as the victim, and Kathy Bates as the aggressor. She's just, this is her signature role. She's off the charts, and it's just a terrific, like I said, suspense thriller horror film. It's a must-see. All right, down to my last two for 1990. Two just unbelievable classics. I'll start off with Kevin Costner, Graham Greene, Danceable Wolves. I think I talked about it in my epics. Just from the acting to the scenery, the shots, the cinematography, the story, the whole thing. Is just a powerful, epic film. And it's just amazing. It's one of my favorites. I love it. And in most years, this probably would come out number one. But it just gets beat out by a film that to me is a tad better. But Danceable Wolves, you can't go wrong. And Graham Greene was up for Best Supporting Actor, and he was ridiculously off the charts in that film. It's a must watch, which leads to number one, which most of you guys have probably already guessed, and that is Goodfellas. And I probably would have to say that Goodfellas is probably my favorite film of all time. Jaws is up there, but I think Goodfellas is probably at one of those two for sure. And we were just talking about Graham Greene up for supporting actor. Joe Pesci ended up winning supporting actor for 1990. So Graham Greene was great in a great movie, but Joe Pesci was great in a greater movie. and you got De Niro, Ray Liotta, Paul Sorvino, um, you know, um, the cast goes on. It's just a really, really, really strong film. The story is amazing. The acting is amazing. The banter, all of the stuff. It's just, it's so good. And you know, everybody's seen this movie, and you will see it over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's funny. Quick story about Goodfellas. I was flying back from one of my football trips, and I was starting to watch a movie, and the young lady sitting next to me was flying out to San Luis Obispo, where she was going to college from Maryland, and she asked me what I was watching, and I said, I was going to watch Goodfellas for the millionth time, and she's like, "Oh, I've never seen it." I said, "Well, plug in. You're going to watch it now." And when the flight was, toward the end and the movie was just ending up and stuff, I said, "What did you think?" And she said, "Unbelievable. That was an amazing film." And that's the kind of effect that Goodfellas has on people, that it doesn't even matter if you're 21 years old or you're 50 years old like myself. It's one of those movies when you watch it and it grabs you, it pulls you in, and you're locked for the whole time. It's just an amazing, amazing film, and that's probably why it's top two of my favorite movies of all time, if not the number one. It's just a perfect film. We all know it once again, and if you're one of those ones that hasn't seen it and you've been like, it's on my list, it needs to go to the top of your list, and you need to watch it now. So that is number one for 1990, Goodfellas. I only have two on the music side. Both heavy metal. Um, Anthrax, Persistence of Time, excuse me. A really, really strong album. It's the first one I had heard by them, and what really got me to listening to them was I had saw Iron Maiden at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and Anthrax had opened for them, and that was the first time I'd ever been to a concert where I bought a general admission ticket. I always had bought a seat and a seat number, so I knew where I was at. But this was general admission, so you could pretty much go in first come first serve. And I was right up front by the stage, and all of a sudden Anthrax comes on, and this time wheel is in the background, and the arms start moving faster and faster, and the music starts getting faster and faster and faster, and all of a sudden the mosh pit starts going, and I'm in the middle of it. And I didn't know what to do. It was unbelievable. It was pretty funny. So I kind of worked my way around it, and I was on the outside looking in. I didn't want to be a part of that. It's just not who I am. But it's a good, fun story, and every time I think of Anthrax, and especially this album, it reminds me of that moment. But I really enjoyed them live, and I went and got the CD, and I really enjoy this record. And it's funny because they just announced that they're releasing the 30th anniversary of it. So I mean, it's just crazy how fast time goes, and I'm looking forward to getting that in August when it comes out. But this is a really, really strong record. But number one for 1990 is Megadeth, Rust in Peace. It's a masterpiece. Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, Hangar 18, Tornado of Souls, Lucretia, Dawn Patrol, Rust in Peace, Polaris. I mean, it's just a really, really strong album. I mean, this is where they hit the height in 1990. And I remember getting this when I was at school on the release date. The record store that was big in our area up by school, up in the Bay Area, was Rasputin Records. And there's still a few around. And the one we used to go to in San Leandro is still in San Leandro, but it's in a different location. But they're still around. And I remember going there and buying this and going back to my dorm room and listening to it and just being blown away. I like the earlier Megadeth stuff, but this is the one to me that really, like I said, took them to the next level, and it's just a really, really strong record, and it's a fun listen. And for a lot of people that don't know this, Dave Mustaine, the guy who's the main guy of Megadeth, singer, guitar player, was actually the original guitar player of Metallica in the early years, and right before the first album, he got kicked out of the band and ended up starting Megadeth. So we thank Metallica for him being kicked out, because to me Megadeth's a better band. But also we get a second band, which is kind of fun, and you still get some of those riffs that he had written with Metallica that eventually gets used by Megadeth. And I think at least one of those riffs was used on this record. At least that was my understanding. Not sure, but anyways, that's what kind of makes these fun, is that it takes you back to that period of time that now I'm in college, and I remember seeing Anthrax at the Cow Palace and buying Megadeth's Rust in Peace at Rasputin Records. And like I said, it just takes you back to a time, and it's great. So anyways, that's it for 1990. Rust in Peace by Megadeth, and of course, Goodfellas on the film side. I will see you guys tomorrow for 1991. Until then, subscribe, hit the like, leave your comments. I'm curious to see what I've already left out to my viewers out there, and we'll see you tomorrow.